The Bleacher Report came out with each and every team's to-do list for the rest of the 2022 offseason. For the Browns, trade quarterback Baker Mayfield. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show. Add a veteran to the defensive interior and figure out which defensive back will primarily serve as the team's nickel cornerback. Of course, that is something they have to do because they traded away Troy Hill. And early on, Greg Newsome has kind of been at least working in that role. Spencer, I don't know about you. I thought he played really well. The thing I would say about Greg Newsome, I never thought he was a rookie in his rookie season last year.
Yeah, no, Troy Hill was great. And I think when they made that trade after the draft or on draft weekend, really, it kind of came as a bit of a surprise. And I do think, though, that speaks to kind of answer that last bullet point that Bleacher Report has on there. I think they value Martin Emerson enough that might be the guy that you see slotted there come the beginning of the season. I mean, he's a bigger guy, so playing in the slot maybe works well for him. 6'2", one of the bigger cornerbacks on the roster. And he's, when you're going up against tight ends out of that slot position, I think that could sort of bode well for him. Have some questions about his tackling ability a little bit and maybe how he fares in that regard. But I do think that, reading tea leaves, when you have a guy like Troy Hill, who, as we both agree, like I'm right there with you that I thought he played great last year. And again, they trade him away. It kind of feels like, okay, well, they drafted a cornerback that same weekend. They must see something in him that they like. So that's kind of where my head's at with it. I do think ultimately he maybe is the guy that gets slotted there even as a rookie, and he'll kind of have to learn on the fly. But that's kind of where my head's at least with that position.
Now, the other one is a veteran defensive interior lineman. I think that would go a long way. I'm not sure the Browns are thinking that way. There's still a couple of names out there. Could you see that? And which of the names still available do you like as like that defensive tackle type?
I could see it. What's interesting, Dave, about the defensive tackle position is just it seems like the Browns have shown us over the last few years that they just don't put a lot of value and stock in that position specifically. I mean, I remember mock drafting in 2021 Christian Barmore, a guy who had a great season with the Patriots this past year on the interior defensive line, like to the Browns. And then obviously things fell differently. They ended up with Greg Newsome, which was a great pick for them at the time. Can't argue with it. But I every time I think I have it figured out in terms of where they're going to go or if there's guys they're going to look at that position, it just doesn't seem to come to fruition for them. I just don't think they value that position as much as maybe other teams do. In terms of names that come to mind, I have heard Ndamukong Suh mentioned. I actually, over the weekend when I was hosting, there was a caller who kind of thought, yeah, Ndamukong Suh, great veteran presence. And I was like, I don't know about Ndamukong Suh. I don't know if I trust him to be the veteran that I want leading some of these young guys with some of his checkered past as a player. But I know that's a name that's been mentioned. Interestingly enough, two guys that are former Browns, Sheldon Richardson, which I know he maybe didn't love the way things kind of went down last year when he was released. But that name kind of pops out to me. Also, Larry Ogunjobi hasn't been re-signed yet by Cincinnati. So those are two guys that maybe stand out to me, veteran guys who have been here. But, it's hard to pinpoint specifically one guy they could look at because I just don't know how much they value that position or who they value in those roles.